I want to show you how you can put these watercolor brushes specifically for this set to use inside of Photoshop. Now, they work great in Illustrator, but some of you might be more familiar with the methods offered to you in Adobe Photoshop. And to be completely honest, Photoshop is the most flexible of the two design applications, in my opinion. You can give 10 people the same assignment to create something, and they could, all 10 of them could do it 10 different ways and arrive at equally great compositions and creative solutions using Photoshop. That's the beauty of Photoshop. It's very flexible. So I'm kind of saying that up front because even though I've been using Photoshop for 20 plus years now, I by no means know all the features in it. I don't consider myself as a Photoshop guru by any stretch of the imagination. If you want to know more about Photoshop and all the various aspects of it, I encourage you to check out Burt Monroy's stuff. The guy is like Yoda when it comes to Photoshop. But what I'm going to show you is just kind of how I utilize these brushes inside Photoshop. And you might watch this and go, man, why is he doing it that way? In which case, just look at the final result and know that's what you can get. But you can use all your better methods because you probably know Photoshop better than I do. So don't get frustrated with that. Just know that if I hunt and peck for something, it's because I'm not doing this every day and I don't bother to memorize all the shortcuts for that matter. So we're going to utilize a bunch of the brushes for this set inside Photoshop now. And right now I'm going to go to my layer called WaterColor. And for the brushes, right now they're grayed out. To make them not grayed out, you just have to select the paintbrush. And once you do, then you can select any brush you want. And just to demonstrate this one, we have to load a color into the brush. Right now it's just white. So we'll go up here and select this teal color. And I'll select this brush here. And you can see that it's displaying in a crude way what this brush looks like. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to paint this texture on this background. I like to paint on transparent backgrounds and when I apply brushes, I keep them on their own background so I can control my composition better, set opacity to control the value, and I can also set a blend mode such as multiply. So it multiplies with another brush color underneath it on a different layer. It just gives you more control doing it that way. So for this, we'll go ahead and paint this texture on here, and you can see how it's very authentic. It looks really, really nice. Now this one, I had the opacity on this layer set to 52. Let's go up to 100. That's what the 100% value of this brush looks like. Once again, you can paint with any color you want to whatsoever. When I paint, once again, I paint on a transparent layer like this. So I'll create a new layer above this, and then I'm going to change the color to this kind of fuchsia color, and then we'll pick a different brush. We'll go down here and select this brush. Now, sometimes these brushes are large, and I did that specifically for the very reason you can size them down as needed. Most of you probably won't use them this large, but it just gives you more flexibility. If I built them small, they wouldn't look so great if you went large with them. So this just gives the user the flexibility to use them how you want and to size easily in Photoshop. If you hold Control Option down and drag from left to right, you can size your brush generally like this. And then once you let go, it'll show you the preview of what size you have. I think on this one we want it a little larger, so let's go a little larger. And then since we're on a new layer here, actually I'm going to go a little smaller like that. And then we can go ahead and I'll put it right here. Now, I'm not really painting with these as much as I am stamping this brush. If you go into brush presets, you can adjust these brushes. Maybe you want it to rotate slightly, or you want to control some of the other aspects of when you use it and what it does and all the various settings. You have all that control in Photoshop. I'm not going to bother to touch on any of that. but you do have the control to set up a brush any way you want. Now on this one, I'm going to go ahead and set the blend mode of this layer to multiply, and you can see how it multiplies with the color underneath. And if you also adjust, in addition to blend modes, you adjust the opacity. So let's take this one and knock that down. We'll take this one, we'll take some of the value off of this. You can see really quickly you get a very authentic look and feel to these watercolor brushes. And the whole reason they look authentic is because they are authentic. They were created with watercolor, and they were created by hand painting them to specifically give that look and feel that you can achieve with real watercolor, but doing it in a digital environment such as this one. So we'll go ahead and pick this blue color here. We'll paint this, and once again, we'll go to multiply. And you can see just how nice this works. Now, another nice thing that I do is the flexibility of digital as opposed to watercolor. Watercolor is one of the hardest mediums to actually paint in and master because it's water-based, meaning the pigment is so flexible in terms of moving, it's hard to control it sometimes if you want to go back in later. And that's where the beauty of digital comes in. So let's say on this one, I wanted to knock out some areas because there's too much pigment there. Well, that'd be really hard to do in reality, but in a digital environment, it's going to be a lot easier. So if I select another brush here and we go to white, we can actually paint in white, which obviously you can't do if you're doing it traditionally with watercolor. You'd have to really plan ahead to know where you're going to be painting white. So you can see how you can knock down the value in areas utilizing a method like this and really model it and create exactly what you want. So that's the process I use to create with these watercolor brushes inside of Photoshop. Now, specifically on the motif I'm going to walk you through here in just a second, it all started with me taking this design I created in Illustrator. I added a feather to it, and all a feather is, if I turn off the background, it just makes a transparent blend so it's not such a hard edge shape. The reason why I did this is because I'm going to use this as a mask. So I'm going to go ahead and hold Command and click on this layer to load a selection, and then I'm going to create a layer above this. Actually, let's go ahead and toss these colors we're not going to use there. I'm going to make a layer above this guy, or actually, no, I'm going to make a folder, and then I'm going to apply the mask to the folder. Then we'll make a layer above this guy, and he will be within the mask folder. So we're painting on a layer inside of a folder that has a mask on it. And what that's going to enable us to be able to do is to take a color. In this case, we'll go with this. We'll go ahead and go with the teal color, and I'm going to size this down a little bit just so it's a little smaller, like this. And we're going to go ahead and paint. And you can see how it's only showing up in some of the areas because we have it masked. And that looks pretty cool. So I'll keep doing this. I'll create another layer above it. I'll change colors, try something else. And let's try a different brush. Let's go over here, go to this one. And we'll go ahead and go smaller on this guy like this. And then I can come in here, just go like this, select multiply, whatever blend mode you want, adjust the opacity however you like. Maybe the one underneath it isn't 100% value. And this is the approach. Now, I'm kind of winging this as I'm talking through it. Normally, I'm not having a conversation when I'm talking, so this looks okay, but let me walk you through my design because it really shows how you can compose these brushes in such a way in Photoshop to really get a nice immersive look and feel. That's what you're after. That's the important thing. How you go about doing it is going to depend on your proficiency with the software. I'm probably frustrating some Photoshop users out there by watching me do this. So don't pay attention to how I use the tools. Just pay attention to the final look and feel, and I think you're gonna like it. So on this one, I'll turn on this layer, and you can see how I've done that same methodology to paint these textures inside of this mask. If I open up this folder, and I've gone ahead and named this so you know exactly what brushes I used, and a lot of these layers have different settings to them. Some of them are 100% value. Other ones have blend modes and opacity settings designated to them. So I have this one on top, and then underneath I've created a nice base. So if I turn this top one off, you can see how it acts as the base for my watercolor composition here. And then on top of this is where I've used white once again to really kind of punch out and kind of diminish the value in certain areas. And then on top of this, I have more white. And this is where adding additional textures really breathes life into this. So here's a speckle one, and here's water spots. Now, if I zoom in on this, you'll get to appreciate the final texturing on this more. You can see how nice this really does look. It looks nice and authentic, and it feels really nice. Now I'm going to move over to Illustrator now and show you how I place this PSD file into Illustrator and show you the final design composition that we use created from this watercolor brush set. So we're going to go ahead and just switch over to Illustrator now. And this was the original base art I created. This was the feathered edge that I brought into Photoshop as a smart object to create my selection from. And now we're going to go ahead and place a PSD file into this layer. So we'll go over to File, we'll go to Place. It's on our desktop, so we'll select it and we'll go Place like this. Let's go to Align. We'll align, make sure we have aligned artboard, and we'll go ahead and align this design to our file. So there's our PSD file, and then I'm just going to simply turn on the type treatment that I have over the top of this. Now there's just a couple things I'm going to do that's just going to really kind of tie it together with the watercolor feel. I'm first going to select this word piece, and I'm going to go ahead and add an outer glow to this. So I'll go to Effects, Style, and we'll go Outer Glow. And on this one, I will select Multiply. We'll select the color, which is going to be this teal here. We'll go OK. And let's see. I don't want this super dark, so we'll go about 30. And I think 5 will be fine, and we'll go OK. And what we've done there is, if we zoom in on this, you can see we just added this faint glow just to define that edge, and it really goes good with the watercolor look and feel. And we're going to do the same type of approach on this type here as well. So we'll go to Effect, we'll go to Stylize, we'll go to Outer Glow, and on this one, instead of teal, we'll do this kind of muted purple. And we'll go OK. And the opacity, this can be a little darker. I don't want the blur to be as large because it's smaller. So we'll go 3, and we'll go OK. And it just helps to punch out that type. So once again, this is how you can get a nice, authentic watercolor effect in your design motifs, regardless of what the genre or theme of your specific project is. You can get a nice, authentic look with this watercolor brush set.